French, the language of England's rulers, and the villagers reckoned their priest must be nobly born, though none dared ask him to his face. Father Ralph blessed the sacraments, then warned the 5 men that Lucifer was abroad and wanted nothing so much as to snatch the holy sacraments from the altar, so they must guard the bread and wine diligently. For a short time after the priest had left, they dutifully stayed on their knees, gazing at the chalice which had an armorial badge engraved in its silver flank. The badge showed a mythical beast, a Yale, and the silver seemed to shimmer in the light of 2 immensely tall candles which would burn through the long night. Then John, a fisherman, farted. "Reckon that's ripe enough to keep the devil away," he said, and the other 4 laughed, and they abandoned the chancel steps and sat with their backs against the nave's wall. In the bigger churches of Christendom, knights kept this annual vigil, kneeling in full armour, but there were no knights in Hookton, and only the youngest man, Thomas, had a weapon, an ancient, blunt sword. "You reckon that old blade'll scare the devil, Thomas?" John asked. "My father said I had to bring it," Thomas said, hefting the old weapon. It was heavy, but he lifted it easily, for at 18 he was tall and immensely strong. He was well liked in Hookton, for he was a hard-working boy. He loved nothing better than a day at sea hauling nets. He knew how to sail a boat, he could lay snares, shoot a bow, dig a grave, geld a calf, lay thatch or cut hay all day long. He was a big, bony, black-haired country boy, but God had given him a father who wanted Thomas to rise above common things. Father Ralph wanted his boy to be a priest, which was why Thomas had just finished his first term at Oxford. "What do you do at Oxford, Thomas?" Edward asked him. "Everything I shouldn't," Thomas said. He had very blue, slightly hooded eyes, a long jaw, and a swift smile. "Do they have girls at Oxford?" John asked slyly. "Enough," Thomas said. "Don't tell your father that," Edward said, "or he'll be whipping you again. A good man with a whip, your father." "There's none better," Thomas agreed. "He only wants the best for you," John said. "Can't blame a man for that." Thomas did blame his father. He had fought his father for years, and nothing so raised the anger between them as Thomas's obsession with bows. His mother's father had been a bowyer in the Weald, and Thomas had lived with his grandfather until he was 10. Then his father had brought him to Hookton, where he had met Sir Giles Marriott's huntsman, another skilled archer, and he had become his new tutor. Thomas had made his first bow at 11, but when his father found the weapon, he had broken it and used the remnants to thrash his son. "You are not a common man," his father had shouted. But neither the words nor the thrashing did any good, and Thomas had pursued his obsession. By 15, he was as good a bowyer as his grandfather, knowing how to shape a stave of yew so the inner belly came from the dense heartwood, while the front was made of the springier sapwood. And when the bow was bent, the heartwood was always trying to return to the straight, and the sapwood was the muscle that made it possible. To Thomas's quick mind, there was something elegant, simple, and beautiful about a good bow. Smooth and strong, a good bow was like a girl's flat belly, Thomas thought, as he leaned back and stared up at the treasure. The treasure was a lance, a huge thing with a shaft as thick as a man's forearm and twice the length of a man's height, and so old that age had bent the blackened shaft out of true. Its tip was not a steel blade, but a wedge of tarnished silver, which tapered to a bodkin's point. And this weapon was not any old lance. This was the very lance St. George had used to kill the dragon. It was England's lance, for St. George was England's saint, and that made it a very great treasure. And somehow it ended up in Father Ralph's possession. But how? The priest would not say. But there it hung, a great dark lance, heavy enough to shatter a dragon's scales. Thomas woke to the sound of the village cockerels, and saw the expensive candles had almost burned down, and a grey light filled the window above the altar. And the first awful